Are you using sites like Reddit for your financial advice? Well, we'll chop that up and see if that's good or bad or not. Hello, welcome back to the Life Money Balance podcast. I am your host, Dr. Preston Cherry, where we let your life lead your money, not your money lead your life. And your life and money are working concurrently to help you achieve the life that you want, your life design. All right, so let's chop. Let's just jump right into it. A lot of folks are going to sites like Reddit for their financial advice, and there's a lot of good channels on there. I made a comment in an article about a year ago, I believe. I'll post that in the show notes so you can find it. But the article was titled, "Should You Take Money Advice from Reddit?" And I was pretty harsh on Reddit. I wouldn't say it was so harsh, but let me read you the line. So, is it good or bad? Well, it's not good or bad. I think there's some pros and cons. I think that there are some good takeaways. However, I believe there's some information on there that may lead people astray or just not very personal in nature. So we'll talk about the pros and cons. But let me read you my line that I had in the article. It says, Dr. Cherry describes Reddit, the personal finance Reddit, as unfiltered data dump with a lot of unverified information. And they put it in quotes too. So they wanted to quote me real hard on that one. I also pointed out that the country has a low financial education rate, which is likely to be reflected in community-based platforms. And I'll say what I mean for that in a minute, because it wasn't meant to be a judgmental mark or anything like that. Also, I mentioned that personal, I guess Reddit sites are pretty good for motivation and community. So in addition to the fact that much of the channel's advice is unverified, it says Dr. Cherry points out that personal finances are indeed personal. Okay, so that was a lot there. And it seemed like I was a little hard in the paint going on there, right? All right, so the data dump quote. So information in the Reddit sites, if you go to some of the more popular ones, and the more popular ones are retirement, and they got the little R on it, right? R, retirement, personal finance. Bogleheads is a big one, or Bogleheads, I guess, after Jack Bogle, the famous Vanguard spokesperson and founder, investing in ETFs. You have financial independence. You have financial planner, investing. These are all channels. And as I said, Bogle already. And there's so many more. There's actually ones for FIRE, financial independence, retire early, and there are different variations of FIRE. There's Henry's, high earners, not rich yet. There's tax channel. There are even some companies have jumped in a little bit. So, these are some popular ones. I think I said retirement, so I'll put that one back up there as well. And you might ask, well, since a lot of folks are turning to social media, particularly YouTube, I'll go over that in a minute too. But why the heck would I lead you to Reddit and name all those channels so you can jump over there and get the information? No. What I would like for you to do is to be mindful of where information is coming from and to try to filter out the noise for your best benefit. And right now, there's a lot of noise, a lot of comparison that goes on in the financial advice that's out there. And this is financial education, by the way. There's a difference between financial advice and financial education. A professional that is giving advice through their business, all right, they're giving advice one-on-one, then that's actionable advice that they are contracted under contract or agreement with that person to give actionable advice. Okay, that's the new AI. By the way, we have artificial intelligence, right? But there's actionable intelligence, right? But what is that? That's an advisory relationship. But on social and all these channels, then there's not advice being given, and you'll see a lot of disclaimers. The disclaimers are go do your own research, or if you read the disclaimer, it says don't take this as investment advice. I mean, I have one myself, because when we're talking to the public and acting as a financial educator or informer, because the person, they call them finfluencers or even the advisors. I'm actually a financial advisor. I'm a financial planner. I do financial coaching as well. I am a professional. Now, when I'm talking to you all through this channel, I don't know your personal situation. So I can't give you advice that you can act upon. I can't do that. That said, there are good informations that you can pass along that professionals like myself and folks that are holding themselves out to have your best interest out here, giving some information, which some folks are not. But the whole point about it is to pass along information and financial education that's actually going to uplift or inform you in such a way that you may say, okay, I have more information and now I've learned something, and you can take it and interpret it and go, and yes, read up some more and then make your own decisions with more information. But that wasn't advice tailored to you. It was information that you can resonate with. And the source of that information is very important. So when we talk about Reddit, what are some of the pros and cons? And it's just not Reddit. I don't want to just single that out in case, somebody comes find me or something like that. There's a lot of, sources of information. There's some trusted sites as well, as you do your own research and just watch folks like myself. All right. The sources are very important. Okay. And I want to make that clear. Where your information is coming from, who is delivering it, the professional or the media outlet. And number 3 is that it is information and education, not advice, although you can act upon it if you so choose. That advice mechanism is very important because advice is tailored to a personal account, all right, tailored to an individual. And that's very different from financial information, as I said. Some of the cons, I wrote some down. So the drawbacks of sites like those are, well, you have the herd mentality a little bit. The herd mentality is that if somebody else is doing it, then you're going to do it. And that may not be a good fit for you. All right. Just because that worked for someone else doesn't necessarily mean that's going to work for you, or it's tailored for you. So when I'm reading the subreddits a lot, I'm seeing a lot of, oh, well, this worked for me, and that may work for you. Now, there's a fine line between like survivor's bias or even saying this worked for me, why aren't you doing it? So there's a fine line between some judgment and non-judgment. A lot of these channels is maybe 50-50. I'm just pulling that number out of the air on far as tonality in the communication channels. And what I mean by that is some of the comments are judgy, some of them are not. And we'll get to the pros here in a minute. One of them is community. So I'll get to that in a little bit. So just the herd mentality, just following everyone because it worked. Now, I will say that here's another pro, which is access to information. Access to information, all the social media outlets. I mean, social media has really changed the game as far as information. Also, phones in their hands. Well, I'll show you some statistics in a minute of who actually is going out by generation, who is going to get the information from social media. But phones in our hands. So access to information, that's actually a good thing because now folks can go to these areas and get some fundamental and starting advice somewhere. So that's more of a pro. I know I'm still in the cons, but that's a pro, access to information. I would say another drawback or a con is inertia. Inertia is just putting your head in the sand. Putting your head in the sand and not doing nothing because it's an overwhelming amount of information. And that's the same approach folks get when they look at that. I call it the either Chili's or what's that other one? The Cheesecake Factory or these, the places with the big menus. It's like, what do you choose? What do you choose? And when folks, you get at their 401k plans at their jobs or they're doing investing on their own or even thinking about comprehensive financial planning, it's so much information, right? Then you're either going to do two things. Either you're going to keep digging and make a decision and have an outcome that way, or you're going to get overwhelmed and say, the anxiety stacking, as I call it, because everybody has, well, I wouldn't say everybody, but there's commonalities that folks have anxiety about money. And then you're going to anxiety stack some more anxiety on top of that by getting this overabundance of information that may not be specific to you or may not be, right, so to speak, right? And you're like, you know what? I may not just do nothing, right? I'll stay pat to what I'm doing. So it's a give and a go. It could be a great motivator and you get more access to information and you use it and you're like, okay, yes, I'm going to act on the education that I'm receiving, or it could just be too much information for folks. Because it does, when we're getting into these threads, you get so many responses. You get so many responses that you have so many responses, so many different angles of information. You ask, well, what's right for me, right? So that's another drawback. I would say context. Context is another drawback for sites like Reddit. There's a lot of detail in some answers, and that detail sometimes is right or wrong. Some professionals actually get into responding on these threads anonymously, actually, so it cleans up some of the information a little bit. That said, and then that said, people share some of their context, like they get real detailed. Like, this is who I am. I have a home, a debt. These are my investment portfolio. This is what I'm looking for. So a lot of detail in explaining what their context is, and then some people jump in with context. All right. That said, there's some that are not that lack the context. Either the question lacks a little bit more depth, or the answers lack depth. The context. Again, some people do well with it, some people don't. When I say people, I mean the person that's asking the question, and then those folks that are answering. In some of these threads, though, they're pretty good. The information is pretty decent, right? It's pretty decent. So it's again a give and a go. Comprehensiveness is another one that's a drawback for me that I'm looking into Reddits, which is comprehensive financial planning and dealing with your finances. It's very integrated. All right, you have tax, retirement, cash flow management, estate planning, your employee benefits, I think I said investing. So all of these areas, okay, of financial planning are integrated over time. And so one factor is surely going to affect two or three other factors, far as your finances are concerned. All right. Yes, it's kind of cool that you can go in and ask a question specifically about, hey, has anybody else had any experience with this ETF, and what's the fees? Can I build a 3 portfolio or a 3 asset portfolio with ETFs? And it's very specific. Okay, yeah, to get some information like that. Okay, that's great. All right. Again, you need that context and comprehensiveness in order to know more about acting on quote unquote advice, right? And so I think that, and coming up with, or working our way into it, as far as another drawback is concerned, right, is getting information is great. Access to information is great. Whether it should be actionable or not, that's a whole different story. It depends on how much information that you gather, and how much time that you spend with it, how much context that you receive, and the like, in order to say, okay, and I feel informed, because that's what financial literacy is, no matter what the economic status is. Okay. Even high income earners and high asset, high net worth people have literacy levels, so to speak. All right. Because literacy is informed decisions and behaviors. And this is what we're going out to do. That's what we're speaking about today, is where are folks going out to get their information, right? So the more information that you have, hopefully now and then power that with, or couple that with motivation. Now you have some action. Just because you know better doesn't mean that you do better. But if you know better with some motivation to want to improve, then now you can take action to do better, right? So it's about the context of the information, the clarity of information, the comprehensive of the information, to whether you're going to have enough of it where you're feel informed to act on it. Having the overabundance of information, they seem to have diminishing returns at the end of the day. Is because you get so much. Now you can either have inertia where you just don't do nothing, you put your head in the sand, or you get too much information to where your decision mechanism has been watered down a little bit, because you've gotten too much information, and you came in with a specific question, and now you have 10 or 11 different answers. And so now the information itself has been eroded a little bit. And this is what I was saying with my quote when I said, again, it's not judgmental or putting any label or anybody, because I did just explain about what literacy means for everybody, because we're all learning more information so we can get more informed and make better decisions and behaviors about our money, not only now but in the future. But I said that the country has low financial literacy rates, which is likely to be reflected in a community-based platform. And that's where I'm talking about, to where if you have all these folks coming together, and yes, there's a sense of community. However, the information is coming from folks that are not professionals, but they have been taking care of their own money. Like I said, some of the information is good. All right. There will be a slight erosion of the information when you have a large group of folks that are not specialized in something, and they're then providing their takes. Okay. Because there are some information, and I've scrolled these areas. I've scrolled these Reddits, like I said, retirement, personal finance, Henry's, Bogleheads, all these. I've scrolled them. There's some spot on information. There's also a lot of incomplete information also. All right, what are some of the pros? Right, community. I think I alluded to this. Community is fantastic in these threads, and you want to be around folks that you can resonate with. You can be open and vulnerable, with no shame, no judgment. Come to the table and say, I'm going through this, and I'm feeling this. I need information on this. Who else has gone through this experience? Can I get some information? And everyone is coming to the table where they are in their journey and getting exchange of information. So that community feel, that's A1 like steak sauce. Okay. And I think you could get that with an advisor who's on YouTube as well, to where you have a little bit more improved quality of the information. And then you have a niche community, one person or one or two persons that you follow and you trust. We'll get to the trust factor in a minute. And you can say, okay, we have a community that we can talk amongst and digest and use the information because we trust it, or it's quality, and we have a community of folks that we can tell our stories. We tell our stories across each other, get some motivation to change, the motivation to go forward and think boldly and aspirationally about our lives and use our money. Like I said, I always say life and money alignment gives money assignments, right? And so when other folks and this is the opposite end of following the herd, right? Following the herd that may not match you, but community is being in a similar group that you can resonate with to help you, move forward with your aspirational goals. So I think community and informational goals. So I think community is one of the biggest pros of threads like Reddit and all the other information communities. Okay, access to information. I alluded to this. Very important. Folks can just readily get access and with low cost to entry. Very, very key factor there. Trust is a big factor. Folks trust other folks that seem to be in their similar situations or that can share similar stories, particularly with those that have worked with a financial advisor before and say, I don't want to use a financial advisor, or I don't trust a financial advisor. So they trust amongst themselves, and that could be problematic or good, right? If you're taking advice from family members or folks that have no connection to you or the like, again, that could be follow the herd, or that could be community. And then we get into all the other things that we talked about earlier: context, comprehensive, quality of advice, all of this, right? So Trust is a big factor here. Now, who is actually surfing these places for financial advice? Trust good statistics out there. So it says, this is one from, I'll post this in here. 27% of Americans use financial advisors. So it's about a third. And then 60% of those that use financial advisors say trust is a big factor. More highly educated folks use financial advisors. Also, most across all studies, right? Trust in the advisor and transparency is the most wanted quality in using an advisor. Also, too, we're talking about the information too, right? The second one tends to be about the quality of the advice, the quality of the information. That people want to go, if they're going to use an advisor, to feel that the information is quality and they're trustworthy. Okay. Over the years, trust in financial advisors have waned a little bit because of financial services industry over the last 4 decades. But it's mightily improved because those that experience high incomes or those that are actually working with an advisor, regardless of net worth or income, as advice is expensive sometimes, or costly, I guess you could say. I say costly, but not doing anything is very costly as well. But for those that are receiving quality, trustworthy advice, they value the advice and believe in it. All right. Now, who is out there going into Reddits and YouTubes? Well, there's a lot of folks. There's 2/3 of folks going into places like YouTube for their financial information, and mostly they tend to be younger. But I would not discount and when I say younger, I'm talking about Gen Z. Gen Z are going to places like YouTube and Reddit like no other. It's because they were born with their phones in their hands, right? And so if you have a generation like Generation X that they're just, I'm an Xer, and they're, by default, we're just mistrustworthy folks. You got to do a lot to earn those trust from those folks. But when we're talking about trust and where you're getting information from, the young folks are going to social media all day. All right. Then you do have Xers and boomers and even millennials getting their information from YouTube and Reddits, but at lower rates. There is information suggesting that these folks still want a human being giving them advice. So these folks may be going out and accessing information at places like Reddit or YouTube and everything like that, but they're also saying, who can I go find to give me personal information, whether in a group setting? So instead of being in a large Reddit type of group setting, they said, let me find a community that is that I can go to and trust over and over again, more intimate, with quality information. And you have financial coaches, you have financial advisors that have those type of communities that people are plugging into. Concurrent themselves, ourselves will have a community-based group Q1 of 2025. But that's, people still want personal advice from a trustworthy person, professional, and have quality of advice. I would also say that those folks that are going to social media, I'm glad you're tuning in here. They're going into social media. They are going into it with some sort of awareness of, there might be, just like there's some mistrust about advisors, there may not be that complete information inside of their sources that they're going. But I will say this as I wrap up the show. I will say that they mistrust sometimes is misplaced amongst financial information and financial advisors. Mistrust is often misplaced because not all information is misinformation. All right. We have a lot of misinformation out and just not in financial advice, so many other topics. Right. So we don't know what's what, but there is some still good information out there. All right. And you can verify it too. When you have places in real good places in the news media, right? That's pretty good on personal finance. Like I said, you can find some good information in the Reddit, so check them out. You can find some good information in places like Investopedia and like NerdWallet, a couple of those. And there's so many others. So if I didn't say your name, doesn't mean that you're not trustworthy. But there is some good information. There's some great information on YouTube too, coming from professionals that do this for a living, y'all. Okay, they're verifiable by investigating their backgrounds and the like. Okay, so continue to follow channels like this, and you'll get some information. All right. Here's a challenge for you as we wrap it up. Leave a comment on any of the shows, particularly this one, and subscribe to the channel. And if you subscribe to the channel, leave a comment on what you would like to hear. All right, because it's a form of Reddit, so to speak. All right, we're gonna have our own Life Money Balance thread. All right, on YouTube. Holler at us. Throw your comments in there. Subscribe, and if you are a subscriber and you leave a comment, we'll take that in consideration and do a show on as a particular topic. If enough people say, you know what, I want to hear more about that, because we talk about a lot on Life Money Balance, which is the feelings and the finances of your money and the surrounding topics around there, like this one, which is important. Who's out there going out getting information, and is it good for your financial journey? All right. That's what I got for you this time. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.